So what happened was with Silicon Valley Bank, and it happened to a lot of banks in the structure, is because we were in such an unnatural point in time in history when it comes to interest rates and banks, where we were at zero for effectively a decade, right? So I think roughly around 2011, maybe more or less. Yeah, 2011 onwards, we were at 0% interest rate for basically an entire decade. And banks can only purchase a certain amount of assets. So they can purchase U.S. Treasuries, T-bills, municipal bonds, which are basically the county, your local cities needs to borrow money to maybe be able to pay for city hall or for certain general things or some big project. The county or the state of California or the state of Nevada, and then they can buy those things. So banks can only buy certain limited amount of things. They can also buy. There's a limited amount too of how many stocks they can buy as well before they're classified as an investment bank. So they're limited on that side unless they're classified as an investment bank, but then they also don't get the certain types of protections because after 2008, they made clear distinctions between a bank and an investment bank. You have to choose which one of the aisle you're in. So most are in a banking sector and then other ones turn into investment banks, but very few and far between. Okay. So what the Federal Reserve did during that crash, where I explained a little bit earlier, was they created a program. So okay, because they bought all these bonds at 0% interest rate, when interest rates goes up, the price of the bonds goes down. As interest rates go down, the price of the bond goes up. And that's how it works. So they were basically buying their bonds at the all-time highs. And then because they're having to buy at that point, what happens is as the interest rates went from 0% to 5.5%, these bonds that they were buying. Oh, also they can buy mortgage-backed securities. I forgot about that. That's a big important one. So Silicon Valley Bank was like, well, fuck it, we're going to stay at 0% interest rates forever. So they started buying a ton of mortgage-backed securities. So they were making 2% interest. Imagine they're paying $1,000 to make 2% interest on $1,000. That's just to make the math easy. And then when the interest rates went up to 5.5%. The price of the bond crashed to $300. To $300. So they took 70% L's. And if they leave those bonds, it was a credit crunch. Yeah. If they leave those bonds on the balance sheet, they'll show losses, which will crash your stocks. But when you are a bank, as a bank, you have a special bucket which is called for long-term treasuries, long-term securities. So they can say, okay, we'll take all this, we'll take these bonds and move them on the secondary bucket. Basically, they can take the losses off their balance sheet, move it to this bucket, and basically they can no longer touch these bonds. They have to mature out. So basically they have to hold them for the full 10, 15, 5, 6 year duration. And then once it's done, they get their money back and then that. So, but what happens is they took, I should just take this down for a second. So what happened is they took customer funds and borrowed money to buy this stuff, which is legal. And effectively what happened is, there's no way we can lose. We have to make money. There's no interest. We have to make safe money. What's the safest thing? We'll buy a bunch of U.S. Treasuries. We'll buy a bunch of mortgage-backed securities. And what happened is as interest rates started going up, Silicon Valley was holding a fuck ton of mortgage-backed securities. And basically they used almost all their cash they had on hand. So basically they were holding no cash. So when customers started asking for money, they basically went bankrupt. Essentially, they didn't have enough cash on hand. So then they created this new program where if for some reason you're experiencing a credit crunch, you can take these secondary bonds that are in the second bucket. We'll buy them from you and give you the cash for them. They go on the Fed's balance sheet, but they can only be used during those specific locations if they need cash on hand. So the Fed created this program. And that's what basically stopped that whole thing from happening. So there you go.